Money comes in many shapes and sizes. But does that make sense in a globalized world?
We have a political system which has not kept pace with economic globalization.
In a world where banks fail and governments go bankrupt, can we find ways to stop the cycle of boom and bust?
The global economy needs a global currency.
Today's challenges are global. The solutions require great minds. In this series, we meet the people who are thinking big. Canadian economist Robert Mundell won the Nobel Prize for Economics in 1999. He helped create the euro, Europe's single currency. But he's always had a bigger global vision. Why stop at Europe? Why not a currency for the world?
The world historically has always had a currency to express prices in. There was a global currency based on gold. We don't use gold anymore, but we need a global currency. People speak their own language, but there is one common language for the world to communicate in. If you don't have that common language for the world to communicate in, just imagine how many translators in the world you need to have. If there were a world government, one of the first things they would do would be to create a world currency, because there'd be a government that would be able to be responsible for it. And that's one of the problems in creating it, that there's no entity, a global entity out there that is a world government.
There is no world government and no world currency. But on the ground, the US dollar has been the dominant reserve currency around the world for decades. Then, in 2008, a crash on Wall Street triggered financial turmoil in the US, followed swiftly by an economic downturn in the rest of the world. The dollar no longer looked such a safe haven. But what would an alternative system look like? Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz chairs a commission of experts at the United Nations that urges reform.
The agreement of that global conference was an explicit paragraph reflecting the view of many countries that there had to be discussions of a new global reserve system. The issue has been raised to a level of, you might say, political saliency.
Central banks around the world keep hard currencies such as the dollar and the euro in their reserves, both to cover international payments and to protect their own currency against external shocks. The economic crisis has reawakened interest in Mundell's ideas. He wants a new single global reserve currency to replace the dollar.
If you had a good working monetary system, you'd have a sudden increase in welfare. Instead of this system we have now, where every 5 or 10 years under the current system, we have a big recession costing the world economy trillions of dollars.
Once a year, a select group of international policymakers, central bankers and hedge fund managers meet at Mundell's villa, high up in the Italian hills. On the agenda, how to turn his vision of a world reserve currency into reality.
This conference is interesting because a number of people are here who are interested in international monetary reform. That subject has not been on the radar screen for a good many years, but because of the crisis, and Bob Mundell's also always been a proponent, it's getting a little attention now, which I think is a good thing.
He has been advocating a global currency and monetary policies which pay attention to other countries' monetary policies, that is, pay attention to the exchange rates.
It's different from any other conference I've been in. Probably there is no greater expert than Robert Mundell in the area of international monetary economics.
Mundell argues that a global reserve currency would end the cycle of economic exuberance and despair. Step one would be to fix exchange rates. Why? To prevent a repeat of events such as the Asian crisis of 1997, when several countries saw their currencies plummet in value. Joseph Stiglitz was at the World Bank at the time.
It first began in Thailand and then spread to Indonesia, and then to many of the other countries with devastating effects on their societies. It was a sense of free fall. You didn't know where it was going to end. It was a calamity, no matter how you look at it.
In 1997, as now, bad loans and a property boom were at the bottom of the crisis. But when speculators attacked, a lack of foreign exchange reserves to cover the loans sent Asian currencies spiralling downwards.
At the time, it was very clear that exchange rate volatility had played an important role in the crisis. There were some scholars who said it was the most important factor contributing to the crisis.
Under Mundell's plan, currencies would gradually be tied to each other until they reached fixed exchange rates. But in a world with almost 200 national currencies, where do you start? Mundell suggests getting going with the two heavyweights.
Fixing the dollar and the euro rate is easy enough for people who are experienced in the area, but the Federal Reserve System, the Central Bank of the United States, and the European Central Bank don't have any experience with fixing exchange rates. They have never done it before, but it's really quite simple, and many countries fix their currencies to the dollar. For example, the Hong Kong dollar has been fixed since 1983. The Panama currency has been fixed to the dollar since 1904.
But the gap between economic theory and political reality is vast. Would America and Europe ever sign up to tying the euro and dollar together? To do so, they would have to agree on the same interest rates and monetary policy. In effect, they would have to give up some of their sovereign power to run their own economies as they saw fit.
Once you get countries involved, then politics becomes involved as well. Governments have always seen money as a useful way to assert their control. Today we're living in a very unusual world historically. We've got the most liberal trade and investment regime internationally we've ever seen in history, side by side with the most extreme doctrine of monetary nationalism that we've ever seen, that is, since 1971.
Yet Robert Mundell's ideas, first spelled out in the 1960s, inspired the creation of the euro, something else that was once unthinkable. When the euro came into physical existence in 2002, it had taken more than 30 years to get member states from political agreement to single currency.
It was sort of like a political no-no to think about unifying currencies. I didn't have any compunction of that because, of course, Europe wasn't my country. It was for another country, but it was a good idea. It was the idea that applied to Europe, and it gradually took hold and came into being with a lot of courageous Europeans that got on board that idea and worked through it, and the result was the euro.
In my view, the euro has been a remarkable success, and there were many economists who really doubted the staying power of the euro before it was created in 1999. American economists in particular were very skeptical about it. One even predicted that it would lead to some form of civil war in Europe.